Episode 2, The Shadow Stirs. For 10,000 years, mankind believed that the galaxy was the battlefield upon which all fate would be decided. Within its countless stars raged wars beyond comprehension. Entire sectors burned beneath the banners of rebellion. Xenos empires rose and fell. Demons clawed at reality from beyond the veil. Great heroes became legends, and legends became myths. Every threat humanity had ever faced came from within the galaxy. Every enemy had emerged from its stars. Every nightmare had been born beneath its light. And so humanity never looked beyond. Why would it? The galaxy itself was already large enough to contain every conceivable horror. Yet beyond the distant halo stars, beyond the furthest reaches of imperial exploration, beyond the lonely watch stations that circled the edge of known space, there existed an ocean of darkness so vast that even the Imperium possessed no true understanding of its scale. The void between galaxies, a place untouched by mankind, a place untouched by chaos, a place untouched by history itself. And within that darkness, something was moving. The first warnings arrived so quietly that almost nobody noticed. An observation station positioned beyond the galactic rim ceased transmitting. At first, no concern was raised. Stations failed all the time. Equipment degraded. Astropathic relays collapsed. Servitors malfunctioned. Entire outposts vanished with surprising regularity across the Imperium. One station disappearing meant little. Then a second went silent, then a third, then 12 more. Still no action was taken. Many of these facilities had operated for thousands of years without direct oversight. Some had not received visitors in centuries. The galaxy was engulfed in larger crises. No Lord Commander was going to divert precious resources to investigate a handful of forgotten listening posts staring into an empty void. And so the reports were archived, ignored, buried beneath a mountain of bureaucracy for nearly 2 decades, until a young magos of the Adeptus Mechanicus began to notice something unusual. The stations had not failed randomly. They formed a line stretching across the outer reaches of the galaxy, each station positioned further toward intergalactic space than the last. One by one, they had gone dark, as though something had passed through them, or past them. The realization disturbed him enough that he petitioned for an explorator mission. To his surprise, the request was approved, and so Explorator Fleet Vesta 9 was assembled. Not a war fleet, not a crusade, merely a collection of Mechanicus vessels equipped for long-range survey operations. Its mission seemed simple: travel beyond the galactic rim, investigate the missing stations, return with answers. No one expected the fleet to uncover evidence of the greatest threat the galaxy had ever faced. The voyage lasted nearly 3 years, through sparse systems and dying stars, beyond trade routes, beyond military patrols, beyond regions marked on most imperial maps. The further they travelled, the quieter the galaxy became. Fewer signals, fewer ships, fewer signs of civilization, until eventually there was only darkness. Ahead stretched the black gulf separating galaxies, a distance so immense that even light struggled to give it meaning. To many aboard the fleet it felt unnatural. Wrong. Humanity was accustomed to stars. Even in deep space there was usually something visible, some distant sun, some faint nebula, some reminder that life existed somewhere. Out here there was almost nothing, only blackness and silence. Then the fleet discovered the first world. Initial scans suggested an ordinary planet. Nitrogen-oxygen atmosphere, stable hydrosphere, temperate climate, everything necessary to support life. The bridge crews barely paid attention. Habitable worlds were common until the biological surveys arrived. No plant life, no animal life, no microbial life, nothing. The results were dismissed as sensor malfunction. A second scan was conducted, then a third. The findings remained identical. The world was completely barren. Landing teams were dispatched immediately. What they found would haunt every survivor for the rest of their lives. The planet should have been alive. Ancient forests stretched across entire continents, rivers carved through mountain ranges. Coral structures rested beneath vast oceans. Everything necessary for a thriving ecosystem existed, except the ecosystem itself. No insects crawled through the undergrowth. No fish moved beneath the waters. No birds crossed the skies. Even the soil was sterile. The world was not dead. Death leaves traces. Extinction leaves evidence. This planet possessed neither. It was as though life had simply been removed, carefully, completely. One Magos compared it to a body whose skeleton remained intact after every cell had been stripped away. The comparison unsettled everyone who heard it, yet greater horrors awaited. As Vesta 9 expanded its survey, more worlds were discovered, each identical, each possessing every condition necessary for life, each utterly empty. One world contained enormous forests. The trees still stood, yet every leaf had vanished. Another possessed oceans stretching from horizon to horizon. The waters remained. Every living thing within them was gone. Again and again the same pattern emerged. Life removed, everything else untouched. No bombardment, no ecological collapse, no natural disaster. Just absence. By the end of the 6th month, the fleet had catalogued 17 dead worlds, then 23, then 41. The pattern could no longer be ignored. Something had happened here, something deliberate, something intelligent. The fleet's senior magi began plotting every location on a stellar map. At first the results appeared random, but then one analyst adjusted the scale. The chamber fell silent. The worlds formed a corridor, a path, a trail. Something had travelled through this region, and everywhere it passed, life disappeared. The route pointed directly toward the Milky Way. For several days, no one aboard Explorator Fleet Vesta 9 spoke openly about the implications of their discovery. The data was undeniable. 41 worlds, 41 lifeless husks, and a single path connecting them all. Yet the human mind possesses a remarkable ability to reject truths it cannot accept. Many within the fleet searched desperately for alternative explanations. An unknown stellar phenomenon, an ancient weapon, a long-forgotten Xenos civilization, anything except the possibility that some vast predator had moved through these systems, consuming every living thing it encountered. The Mechanicus prized logic above all else, but logic itself was beginning to fail. The numbers simply did not make sense. The biomass required to strip entire worlds clean would be unimaginable. The scale involved exceeded all known biological processes. Entire planetary ecosystems erased. Again and again and again, no known species possessed such capabilities. No known empire required such resources, and so the fleet pressed onward toward the edge of the trail, toward whatever answer awaited in the darkness beyond. It was on the 187th day of the survey that the auger stations detected something unexpected. A dwarf galaxy, small compared to the vast spiral of the Milky Way, yet still containing billions of stars. Ancient records identified it only as a remote satellite galaxy orbiting the galactic halo. Few Imperial vessels had ever visited it. Even fewer had returned. The discovery generated excitement throughout the fleet. At last, something substantial. At last, perhaps an answer. As the fleet entered the dwarf galaxy, long-range sensors immediately began reporting anomalies. No active biospheres, no detectable civilizations, no signs of intelligent life whatsoever. The galaxy was silent, not merely quiet, silent. Even the most desolate regions of the Milky Way contained life. Primitive organisms, microbial colonies, alien ecosystems, something. There was always something. Yet here, there was nothing. No voices, no signals, no movement, only dead stars and empty worlds. The deeper the fleet travelled, the worse the situation became. System after system revealed the same horrifying pattern. Planets capable of supporting life. Planets that should have supported life. Planets that once almost certainly had supported life. All barren, all sterile, all empty. The silence became oppressive. One senior Magos eventually voiced what everyone else had begun to suspect. This galaxy had not died, it had been eaten. The fleet later discovered an ancient monitoring station, drifting in the void, damaged, broken, older than any human civilization. Within it remained a single functioning data core. The recording began. Stars, silence, then movement. A shadow crossing distant starlight. The machine zoomed, then zoomed again. The shadow continued growing. The station's machine intelligence began calculating dimensions. Moments later, an error appeared. Object exceeds parameters. Again, object exceeds parameters. Again, object exceeds parameters. The recording ended. Whatever the station had seen was larger than anything its creators had ever imagined. Days later, the first psychic disturbances began appearing across Imperial space. Astropaths screaming. Navigators suffering identical nightmares. Psychers describing darkness, distance, hunger, an immense presence moving through the void, watching, waiting, approaching. One astropath carved spirals and teeth into the walls of his chamber before taking his own life. At the time, nobody understood why. Years later, they would. By then, it would be far too late. Then came the final revelation, fresh gravitational disturbances. Not ancient, not historical, recent, months old. The dead worlds were not evidence of a forgotten catastrophe. They were tracks. The trail was still fresh, and whatever had made it was still moving. Every sensor aboard the fleet was redirected toward intergalactic space, toward the darkness beyond the trail, toward the place from which the unknown force had come. Hours passed. Then an analyst noticed something strange. Stars disappearing, briefly, then reappearing. More stars vanished, then hundreds. Something was blocking the light. Something vast. The calculations began, but the results were absurd, then more absurd still. Eventually, the fleet abandoned the effort. The object could not be measured. Only one certainty remained. Something enormous was approaching. The fleet immediately turned for home. The warning had to reach Terra. The warning had to reach Mars. The warning had to reach the Imperium before it was too late. Months later, during one final scan before re-entering Imperial territory, the fleet confirmed the truth. The anomaly had grown stronger, closer. The projected route stretched from the darkness between galaxies, across the dead worlds, through the silent dwarf galaxy, toward the Milky Way, toward humanity. Something was coming, and it was coming here. The warning was transmitted, encoded, verified, repeated across every available channel. All that remained was hope. Hope that someone would listen, hope that someone would believe, hope that humanity still had time. But deep within the darkness between galaxies, something ancient stirred. A consciousness unlike any that had ever existed. Not an empire, not a civilization, not a god. a hunger, a vast intelligence spread across unimaginable distances, drifting through the void, patient, eternal, consuming, and within that endless consciousness, a memory awakened, a flash of light, a beacon, a signal, the same signal that had erupted from the Pharos all those centuries before, the same impossible burst that had pierced intergalactic darkness. It had seen the light, and now it followed it across the endless void, toward the galaxy that had unknowingly called to it, toward a feast beyond imagining, toward mankind. The first warning had been delivered, the evidence had been gathered, the trail had been found, yet even now few understood what approached. The Imperium believed itself the master of 1,000,000 worlds. It had forgotten a simple truth. There is always a larger predator, terror, deep within the chambers of the Adeptus Astra Telepathica. A lone astropath awakens violently from sleep. Blood runs from his eyes. His attendants rush forward. The man grips the edge of his cot. His body trembles. Then he whispers 3 words, barely audible, yet every person in the room hears them. It saw the light fade to black. End of episode 2. The shadow stirs.